All right. Hopefully this is working and we've got audio. I'm testing a new software, at least out here, and going to give it a shot for doing some of these one-off lives. So hopefully you can hear me. If you can't, maybe type something in chat. If you can, do the same. But good to see you all here. And yeah, we're going to let a few people trickle in as I just kind of put this out there, try to get some in before we crack open this box. But we do have a few views here. We've got our chatting window, and well, that doesn't show me pretty well, but we have our chatting with top down, and then we're also going to have our top down so we can kind of take a look at this pretty well. And yeah, so this is a new laser from Longer. It's their B1 series. Now I'm told this is a 20 watt, and it's labeled as a 20 watt, but everything I'm seeing online, they just have a 30 watt. So I'm curious, you know, is the 20 watt just not out on their website yet? But we shall see. It's supposed to have some pretty cool features as far as it's got the M8 auto air assist on there, has a lot of safety features and like your flame detect, your tilt and whatnot. One of the interesting things I read about the B1 30 watt, and I'm hoping it's on this 20 watt as well, is that when it has that flame detection, it's also supposed to go, I believe, to home. So that's a nice feature that if it detects it, it doesn't just stop the laser and park it over the flame. Hopefully it tries to get out of the way. But we'll take a look at least at the manual and some of the features. My goal tonight is at least to try to get it assembled. If we have time, maybe we'll run a quick test on it as well. But anyway, thanks everyone for hopping in and joining me. We'll get this going. Now, generally with these lasers, they do come with all the tools and everything that you need to assemble them. I do like to have my own set of drivers, and these are from Weha. They're a straight driver rather than the kind of the angled Allen wrench. I just find sometimes these make it a little bit easier to assemble with. But other than that, we're going to try to rely on all the tools that are in here. So with all that out of the way, I say let's go ahead and crack open this box. So we will try jumping over here. And I mean, it's still sealed from the factory. I have not opened it up. There's just a minor ding on here. And so this is going to be what it is. I'm going to be as surprised as you are as whatever's in here. So let's take a look. If you have questions or anything, try to put them in the chat. I'm going to try to monitor them as best I can. And happy to answer anything that I can for you. So, all right. We have our typical foam in here, and as is expected, it's really well packed in here. We have this air pump. This looks similar to some of the others I'm seeing from other companies, kind of your small aquarium style, but it's got this aviation type barrel plug to attach it. We have our bag of goodies, and it looks like they're labeled by part or step. So there's some keys in there, but what I'm seeing right here is, hopefully this is a spare part. So this is kind of the laser, the cover lens and brass sleeve. That it's nice to see them included in there. Looks like this one's probably glued down with silicone and such, but those are replaceable. You can just kind of loosen them up with acetone. But it's nice to see that they're including a spare one in here, but we'll dig into that bag in just a little bit. Move my drink out of the way. Not a whole lot in this quick start guide. I'm assuming maybe they have a bigger manual. Looks like it's just a fold out, kind of a 4-page kind of thing. So hopefully that'll guide us right through this assembly. So let's start getting some things out of here. Like I said, this is the air pump. It's got the rubber feet. And this one, it's controlled by light burn in the controller. So this is going to go into the controller, and that's just your relay. Doesn't look like there's any variable power on here, so it's going to be an on and off kind of deal. That's a little unfortunate. I like to be able to turn it down for like in graves, but still keep it running just for a little positive pressure on there. Your typical plain green glasses, safety glasses. If you've watched my channel, you know I prefer having a good set of rated glasses for that. It's like a USB A to B connector. Typical power brick. That is a 120 watt, so it's a 24 volt 5 amp out with your typical power PC power cable, so nothing too fancy there. Alright, we have, this looks to be like our air supply. Oh wait, here we go. This is what I was looking for. So this is our air supply line, and they have an inline valve. So this is going to be how we can hopefully turn it down. I'm not sure if this is going to mount on there somewhere or if it's just going to sit free, but we'll take a look at that. And here's our laser module. It's a pretty good sized item. So let's try to get this out of this anti-static Ziploc bag. So on the front here, it's saying a laser B 120 watt. So we are looking at a 20 watt laser, typical 450 to 460 nanometer wavelength. It says max power input 24 volts, 3.2 amps. So the optical power is 20 to 22 watts. So they do have kind of a side air intake here. So the hose is going to come down here on the side. And then there you can kind of see that they've got the cone. And they have a focusing foot on this side. It just rotates. Then your typical dovetail to bring it down. Nice little clasp there that's supposed to catch the cables and plug into the laser module on back there. So looks like if you wanted to, we could take this shroud off. I'll have to see how, if this just presses on. I'm not seeing necessarily a hole for a set screw, so I'm guessing that's it. But there's the laser module. So that should leave us with the frame. So here is the gantry. Feels like aluminum, anodized aluminum. Does have your typical V-slot wheels on here. And we'll have to see about any adjustment with the eccentric nuts. So on the side ones there are 4 wheels. If you can see those there, but you got 2 up here and 2 on the bottom. And it looks like the bottom ones are both eccentric nuts that you can adjust. And then in the inside here, we've got 2 on the bottom, and there's going to be 2 on the top. And then, of course, belt driven. And I'm assuming there's going to be some tensioning. It looks like you tension it by the stepper motor over here, perhaps, but we'll take a look at the manual and see what that says. Slide this over, give myself a little room. And let's see here. These are going to be your side rails, maybe. So it looks like the wiring is included, or is run in a channel there partway down, which is nice. This is taped down for one of your wires, probably for the limit switches, and then this going back probably into the module. And then there's a pulley here. Looks like this is going to be our adjustment for the tensioning on the belt. So it looks like we're probably going to be installing a belt on here. And pull out that foam piece, and it's probably going to be the other side. And yeah, the same, except for it doesn't have the wires through it. Has our tensioner on the back here. Looks like it's just a nut that we can, this threaded, that's going to pull it back. But all pretty clean aluminum, kind of custom extrusion that these V-slot wheels are going to ride on. All right. This looks to be our back rail, and there is a stepper motor here, and there is a timing rod there that the belt is going to hook onto as well. So we'll need to look at that. There's actually those belts are on both sides, so that's going to go into those 2 rails, and that's going to loop around to those other idler pulleys on the other side. Nice rubberized feet on the bottom here. I don't know that these are, I mean, they are threaded in there with a pretty deep thread, so I mean, I imagine you could take them out, but I don't think they're necessarily adjustable by any means. And then this, what I imagine, is the last piece. This should be our front. Let's get this box out of the way. So we have our control panel up front. We have buttons all on top, unfortunately, but they do have your e-stop button on the other side, which I do like, because when they put them on here right next to these, your cables are always running around, and I'm always concerned that I wouldn't be able to get to the e-stop button when I need to. But I do like it when they put them on the side, and then it looks, here's that barrel connector on the side for the air control. Then we have a small micro flash card, your USB, your power, and it looks like a communications cable of sorts. We'll have to see what that looks like. Looks like key, power button, maybe a reset button, and a LED light, and then our e-stop. So those are the parts as they come out of the box. Do one last check. I don't see anything else in there. So we'll take a quick look at what is in this bag. So we have all the hardware is labeled by step. So we got step 2, step 4, step 5. You have a card reader as usual, a little brush for cleaning that most people don't use. This is your wrench for adjusting your 10 and 8 millimeter. You know, these are good to hold on to because some of these, they're really tight and these are narrow, and your typical wrenches are a lot wider. They have a lot of zip ties. They have a small tweezer, and then your typical Allen wrenches. And like I said earlier, these are fine for assembling the laser. I just prefer to have my set. This is a metric set of Weha wrenches that they're like got the straight drive, and they work really well, make it a little bit easier. So, all right, so we got our belts, we got our lens, we got 3 bags, keys, some zip ties, and then just 3 real small, thin pieces of scrap test wood. So that is that. Let me get this a little organized. We'll take a look at the steps, the book for initial steps, and see how this goes together. So hopefully everything's going well. Hopefully I'm getting everything in frame for you guys to see. I'm trying to be mindful of that with my monitor over here. And hope everyone is doing well. It's been getting warm up here. It's been peaking into the 90s here in Minnesota this weekend and getting humid. So definitely a turnaround from this winter that we had. So I hope wherever you're at, it's, you know, summer but not unbearable. So, all right. Let's see what it says here. It's the packing list, everything. All right, looks like all the steps are on this side. So, looks like they want us to left frame, right frame, and the X-axis frame. So we actually need to start with the gantry sliding onto these. And so, see if they tell us. I'm going to assume that this one, no, these go, this is where it's a little interpretation from their photos. All right, so we've got the stepper motor, left frame, right frame, but they don't really differentiate on here. I'm assuming the wires go on the left side, and the tightener goes back. So we're gonna see if we can wheel. Well, probably gonna need to take this wire off first. We don't. Get those wheels on there. And then this one, just the inverse, I would imagine. Over on here. So this is probably a good opportunity to adjust these eccentric nuts. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of room here. And what you're going for is you don't want any of this slop, but you don't want a lot of resistance in in it moving either. So we're going to take these and just kind of start tightening these down a little bit till they, just so they stop rolling. If they freewheel like this without moving the bar like this one, that's where I adjust it. So I'll tighten it up just until it's grabbing it, and then I'll play around a little bit till there's no real slop. There, that's a little too tight. Back it off just a little bit. There, they move fairly freely. There's no real slop. Same thing over here. Let's a little. When there's two of them, there's kind of a trick to getting the balance between the two, because you don't want any extra pressure on one, because your wheels will wear prematurely and it'll add a little bit of resistance. We do have a little slop there, but so it's definitely worthwhile taking your time to get these working smooth. It'll help prevent getting issues with your stuff later. So all right, so we've got that slid on there, and now we're going to flip this over, and I'm going to hope I got these on the right sides, otherwise I'm going to have to take them off and flip them around. So and I'm going to work with this towards me instead of towards you, just so it's easier. It does look like this wire is going to go into there, so this should slide in there, and this should slide in there. We'll see how well, if it wants to key itself together at all. It does kind of feel like it's going to line up, so I'm going to put these on back as well. This away a little bit. Okay. I hid my bolts on me. So we got our step 2s and the M5s by 12, the front and rear. So now it looks like these hopefully line up and grab in here. Okay, I can see it. So anytime I'm doing this, I try to just get them to where they're not quite tight. They're loose enough to have a little bit of wiggle. That'll give you some play when getting the rest of them in, and then once everything's looking lined up in the line, you can kind of go back around and tighten them down. You just want to make sure you don't forget to tighten them down, because then you have a loose frame, and that could be giving you problems as well. Off, and it's the last one here. So there's only one on the top of each corner here for this first step, which is actually step 2 after you get the rails on, but so there's that. And then on the front side, it looks like there is one as well. So on each corner, you got 2 screws that you need to put in and get it lined up. So that's where I'm going to keep those others loose until I get these in on all 4 corners. Then we can go back and tighten them all up. Oh, looks like we've got Mr. Clack in the audience. How you doing? Yeah, a lot of hopefully. Well, you know, that's the thing with these with these frames. Everything's kind of, hopefully this works until you get it all together. So we'll get these lined up. Again, this is why I left them loose. Need just a little bit of play in there. All right. Now I should mention, let's see here. I believe if I was reading right, this is, do they show the dimensions on here? I believe when I was reading online, this is actually like a 450 by 410 working area frame. And so that's interesting because that's a bit deeper than your typical ones. I think the other ones we've seen are normally in that 400 by 400 or 410 by 410. Biggest one I've seen is the 8s are at 430 without getting into the extended rails. So this does give you a touch more working area if that's true. So always nice to have a little more room, but you know, one of the nice things I like about these diodes is they've got a decent sized working area, but are still fairly portable. And we've got this frame assembled. I can still move it around. As you've seen Mr. Clack, he likes to store some hanging up on his wall. You know, so even though I have my bigger CO2 that I can use, I like these for how portable they are. So, all right, so we've got those frames done there. So now we need, it looks like we need to get the timing belt. And looks like they go into some clasps. I'm going to see if I can get this situated so that you can see this. So we've got two long ones, and then they've got these brass ends on here, and those are going to kind of slide into these slots on here, it looks like. And we're going to have to loop it around and then slide the other one to the other slot and then tighten them up. So I'm going to see if I can get this situated so that's visible. I'm hoping I can see it myself. So if we flip this upside down, and so we're going to need to get it around this back loop, and then they are going to catch in this slot here, and then they'll pull tight. But we got to get them oriented right, so the teeth are going to be going in. This looks like a lot of fun trying to get it through here. I don't have any access there. Okay. And I can't loop it around. So this is going to be a little fun part. We're going to need to get this in there and fished back around. Without getting it caught on things. So let me see if I can show you this a little bit better. In here, we have the pulley, and it needs to loop around that and then come back out. So that's what I'm trying to fish this around. I may need to grab an extra tool. Unless this end cap comes off. I should check that. Aha. Did they say that in the directions and I just glossed over them? Well, I think we'll be able to remove this. Let me check that out, because that would make this actually doable rather than frustrating. So there's this end cap. There's two screws, and this is all pre-installed, so you're going to have to maybe pop this off. and see if this cover will come off. Maybe? You gonna cooperate for me? All right, there we go. So this end cap will come off. Now we have access to that. That'll make this a lot easier. So here, all we have to do is loop it like that. And run this back to the middle. We're going to loop this around this tensioner. And then this slides in there. Get this tucked back under there. And this should pop into there. If we have to, we can loosen up the tensioner, which we might need to do. If it will, otherwise I got this snagged on something, but making sure I'm not binding up anywhere. There we go. So like that. So that one's in. It's actually pretty decent tension. If we needed to tighten it up, we would adjust this bolt here. So let me get the other side done and then we'll put these caps back on. How's it going, Jack? Just assembling a new laser. This literally arrived yesterday while I was running up to the Twin Cities to wish my sister a happy birthday and check on a few things up there. Came home and this was here, and so I thought let's get cracking on it. I just finished up the IKEA video, so that's out there, and this one is the next one on the bench. But don't worry, there will be some project videos in here as well too. I've got a lot of people wanting to know about LED lights and other things, so we will get back on that shortly. I'm actually going to loosen this up a little bit because I think it's, there we go. That'll make this pop off easier. Flip this back around, we'll get this belt on. Second one always goes easier. Probably said that too soon though. This is where I'll start having problems. Okay, there's an easier way to do this, and that's just to feed it from the top. I don't know why I'm fighting trying to bring it back from the bottom. There we go. Make sure that's flat. That around. Now the trick will be getting this square, so I'm going to bring this closer and then push that on. There we go. The belts are installed. Question is, are they square? Don't think they are, so I think I need to adjust this one a little bit. Now they look better. I'm going to put these end caps back on, then we'll double check everything else. This is about the time of the year that I start thinking I need an air conditioner out here, because it was, like I said, it was 90 degrees with the humidity, and or 90 degrees and the humidity was up there, really bad in the mornings. And as much as Clack likes to make fun of me for it not being warm up here, we got 10,000 lakes and a lot of cornfields that like to absorb moisture and hold it, and it just makes it muggy and no fun. So So I hope, sounds like Clack was out working on his enclosure, adding a fresh air intake, and I like that idea, both summer and winter, for not dumping out all your conditioned air, whether it's heat or whether you're warming up the space or cooling it down. So I'm going to be curious to see how that turns out. I'm sure we'll be seeing and hearing about it maybe even as early as tomorrow at our Sunday night live stream. So that'll be fun. And this is why I really enjoy these straight drivers rather than those angled ones, is that you can get these in really easy, and most of these machines, you shouldn't need to torque them down. You know, you shouldn't need the leverage to really torque these down that much. This is, you know, steel screws into aluminum frames and threads. You torque it down too much, you're just going to be stripping things out. So, all right, it does sound like something's rubbing a little bit on this side, so I got to check that out. But see what's up here. May just need to be loosened up some, but we've got the belts on there. These tensioners, let's see if this wrench fits on here. Yeah, it does, so sort of. See if we can loosen that up just a little bit. Anyway, we've got that on there. Step 4, prepare the laser module. So it looks like they want us to put that on next. So like I said, this has your typical dovetail connection here. It's got the flip down foot for setting your focus. And there is a knurled M3 screw, sorry about that. That looks like it goes in on the right side and is going to grab into that. Now, that does work, but over time, that does tend to bite into this dovetail and leave some marks. So that's something to be careful on any of these lasers that are like this. You know, you want it to be snug, but you don't want to over tighten it. Now that, for me, that is awfully close. So if you got big fingers, that you might not enjoy that as much, but it does hold. You can get at it, but that I think is maybe a little bit of an oversight there, is having it a little too close to this frame. All right. Pair limit switches. Well, I don't, oh, yep. So limit switches are not pre-installed. We've got a bag with some very tiny screws, and this is a very small limit switch. It's not a standard size connectors, so we're going to have to install those as well, it looks like. And they show a really nice close-up photo that it's going to be interesting to try to tell where that's at. So let's see. Goes into the frame up here. So we've got one that goes into the frame. There's 2 holes. I'm guessing it looks like they're saying the front ones, and then the X, where would that be? Oh, that's up front on the gantry here. So we've got 2 small holes up here on the left side of the gantry. So let's get these popped on. Yeah, Brad, I know air conditioner sometimes makes it a little tough, but a lot of those new mini splits, they are super quiet. You almost can't tell that they're running. So I think you would be able to get away with running it for the most part. A window air conditioner, probably not. All right, so these are labeled X and Y, so probably going to want to make sure we use the right ones here. So got to put the Y1 on the side here, and looks like they want the tab going down. We'll get these going. These are very tiny little M2 socket head screws, so I want to be careful of those. They are never fun to replace. I don't know that too many local hardware stores carry them of any decent variety. So it's always got to order them if you don't have them on hand. So that's why, especially messing around with a number of these machines and with my RC stuff, I end up buying a good set of metric button head screws, cap head screws, all that. Because you can never find them locally when you need one of a random length. So not a bad idea to pick some up if you play around with these machines a bit. So we'll get these threaded on. Again, I'm just kind of snugging them up. You don't want to over tighten them and strip out any threads. All right, so here they want us to install the air hose. So we've got this on here, and it's zip tied together. So I'm gonna grab a side cutter so I don't cut into anything. It's always nice having a small pair of these when dealing with these machines as well, so you can get in there and just kind of clip off those small zip ties. So it's pretty good length. Looks like we've got about, well, I'm guessing this is a meter, so just over 3 feet on this end, and then a little bit extra here. That's going to go into the air pump. Like I said, this is a valve, and I'm guessing this is, well, maybe it's got magnets on it. Not that this frame is magnetic, but they do have these little metal pieces in there. But they want us to thread this into the module. Again, this is down here on the side, and it's got the little press valve there. And then I think they want us to run the wires as well. So I should have, oh, did I misplace them? Oh, it's not, it's attached to the laser. All right. So this top one, it's in your typical snakeskin sleeve. It's labeled laser. You've got another one on the side here. It's labeled X and X. So this is going to be your stepper motor connector. This little black one's going to be your limit switch. And they do have these little straps of Velcro screwed into the top of the gantry here. So, I mean, it's nice that they're already in there as anchor points. They're using Velcro, so it's something you can, you know, undo as needed. So I'm going to attach this to the laser first. Fish this in here. I'm a little... All right, so they've got heat shrink tubing on here, but it doesn't go down below this kind of this little clip in the top here. I'd really like it if it did that, and actually it'd be nice if this snakeskin went down over that. So we might be able to push this down further and secure it. I like to have a little anti-strain relief, kind of a loop in there. So it might be that we can get this down to add that loop, and that'll just prevent that from having any strain on it. And then we'll be able to run this over to the side, but we got to make sure that these can reach the stepper and the limit switch. So what I think I'll do is I'll plug in the stepper. It's on the front there, limit switch. And it's hard to get these mixed up because, you know, they only reach the right spots. So yeah, if we put this in here, again, here, this will provide a little anti-strain, because if you have it too far, it might start pulling on these. You want to make sure that anywhere there's your connections and such, they're not going to get pulled due to the motion of the laser. But Yeah, Jeff, you got an evaporative cooler. Yep. Hey, more power to you if you've got it in your shop. I mean, I keep waffling on wanting to spend the money on it, and every summer I go, I should do it, and then it cools off, and I go, well, I got other priorities, so we'll see. Eventually, it'll probably trickle up to the top of the priority list. As Clack put it, it's a safety issue. He doesn't want to get heat stroke. All right, so we've got this in here. We want to make sure that our cables will stay out of the way. This will come over, hit the limit switch. It does kind of, well, maybe we can tuck these out off to the side, but we've got extra zip ties that they provided, so I may end up adding some loops on here just to keep these kind of together. But as long as we can kind of train that to go in the right area and stay out of the way, that should be okay. It's good to test, the movement, but you don't want to go too fast because you will, there are 3-phase stepper motors in here and they will backfeed electricity into your control board. So just check that a couple times, make sure everything's moving smoothly. We've got our air hose that's going to come over here. And it looks like we also need to connect our stepper and the main control board up here. If I can find that. So we've got the stepper is a little pigtailed off this big white connection. So we'll plug these in. And then your big white plug is going to be keyed in one direction, I think. This is a little bit different plug than I'm used to. It's got pins on both sides. I'm guessing there's a black label on here that's marked on the top, so we're going to go ahead and plug that in that way. It's got a couple clasps on the side that hold it in. So again, we're going to move this forward. Still getting a little bit of rubbing in there. I'm going to have to figure out first. That does hit the limit switch without this banging in up front, so we're good there. So the last thing I need to figure out is we have our Y cable back here. And that just needs to come around to the motor underneath. We're going to plug this in here. Got a little extra there, but looks like if we tuck it out of the way, it'll stay below that foot. Hopefully be out of the way there. So that should be all the wiring. You can see that you got your, well, let me turn this around so you can actually see. Up on the front underneath here, you've got a little extra access to the board. You've got your, this is your Wi-Fi adapter. You can loosen this and flip it around. Being surrounded by all that metal may give you some issues depending on your shop and such, and how close is your wireless. But other than that, that's kind of the laser looks like from the bottom with the wiring all done. So our last part, for the most part, would be connecting up our air pump. And so, like I mentioned earlier, this is that air pump you've probably seen with other manufacturers. Just has a brass nozzle here, and then instead of a regular power cord, we've got our avionics barrel plug that's going to go in there. So this will just press on the tube, and then this will plug into the side of the control board. And there is a notch in the end of it. If you're not familiar with these plugs, there's a little notch in here, and that lines up on the other end. So you won't be able to put it in backwards because it physically won't be able to go in. So just make sure that notch gets lined up, and then you can tighten the ring down around it to keep it secure. Up, Brad, you say the moisture is the enemy, 90% off. Yeah, so that's the thing up here too, is that we get such humidity swings that dealing with wood movement is kind of a pain, because in the winter, the humidity goes way down, but in the summer it goes way up. So you get some pretty big swings of that. So it can be fun if you're into a lot of furniture building. You got to really factor your wood movement, try to start out with it at a happy medium, acclimate it to the area that it's actually going to be in. Because like out here in my shop right now, the humidity is about 60%, temperature is 75. It'll probably go up from there yet. All right, so we've got that in. We've got to plug the air pump, the sleeve, the rubber sleeve on there. So that is connected. This little module, they've got some length on there, but I'm going to leave that coiled up for right now. And our module. So about at this point, what we really need to do is just double check everything, and we can hook up the USB, hook up the power, and see if Lightburn will detect it. Now, I should also double check to see if they have a card in that reader. So it might have more of a manual on there. You have 14% humidity, Jeff? That's kind of the other extreme. My dad down in Arizona gets that a lot, and sometimes their standing live forests can have lower moisture content than your average furniture, so it gets a little scary at times. All right. We'll run our power around. Make sure I can get this plugged in. Hopefully without unplugging something else. It'd be really bad if I unplugged my computer and lost y'all. Okay, that's plugged in, and then the USB cable. So this hasn't been too bad. We've been going for about 45 minutes with me talking and a little bit beforehand, so looks like the build can happen in about 30 to 45 minutes, and even with their instructions, be in a couple photos that could maybe be a little bit clearer, but all in all, they did a pretty decent job with that, so that's good to see. And we'll plug the power in here. All right. If you're not familiar with these end stop buttons, they just press down, but then to re-enable them, you actually need to twist them. That's where these arrows are on here for. So you twist them, and that will disable the end stop or re-enable the power switch. So looks like we got a power button, key. Where'd my keys go? There is a card in here, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in the laser first, because oddly enough, sometimes these lasers do not like to work without having a card in them. So put that in there. And they give you two of these little keys. So there's a, you can't see it too well there, there's a red and looks like maybe a red or a black, red and black. So turn that, can't pull the key out, put that in. And it's got power. I don't see any smoke, so that's good. All right. So I don't have it set up. I forgot to set it up so where I can share Lightburn with you all, so I'm just going to have to do this myself. But we will pop open Lightburn. I'm going to change my COM port to choose, hit devices, and find my laser. Let's see if it finds it. It's thinking, it's scanning. And it did, found a GRBL 450 by 440 on COM5. Sounds good, so we're going to label this the longer B1 20 watt. Next, I always turn off the auto home on startup. I'd rather do it manually, but it does come to the front left, so we'll leave that in there. And we'll hit finish. Let's jump over to that one. And we've got, well, it's slowly moving. Wish they did not have the cables straight out the top. Yeah, Brad, I agree. You know, they've got them sticking up straight out here, so it's in the way of, you know, you're moving. You can bend them down, but you know, you don't want to strain them too much. Really like it when they put them on the side. But at least on this one, they have the e-stop over on this side rather than amongst all those cables. So that is a bonus. All right, so it did home. Let's see if we... All right, let's move a little faster for its regular speed. That's something we can, of course, adjust. I'm going to have it... Yeah, so its homing speed is very slow. When I was reading online about this one, they did tout that it would support up to 38,000 millimeters per minute of engraving speed. So again, that's pretty fast. Now, in reality, between it accelerating and decelerating, you know, within a 440 to 450 millimeter area, it's going to be hard pressed to actually get up to that speed too often. But it is interesting to see that they support those speeds on here. So, yeah, Norbert, it's like I was mentioning, it's 75 degrees in my shop now, and 59% humidity. It has warmed up here in the Great White North. We've got leaves on the trees, and it's been actually getting up to about 90 degrees this weekend. Next weekend it's supposed to cool off a bit too. So, but yes, I am warm. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get honeycomb spoil board underneath here, and we'll see if we can run a quick cut test on this. So let me get that set up. Feel free to talk amongst yourselves for a minute. All right, so it's your typical 17-inch square board, and I've got it just elevated with a couple of pieces of plywood here. I'm not going to run a whole lot out here in the open because, like I say, I don't want to open up my door and let even warmer air in. But we'll run a couple of tests on here. Just going to get my stuff set up. So let's see here. We'll go with my old standby of Baltic birch plywood. I've got a test piece here. That's not very flat. All right, we'll grab a different piece. That's better. That's laying flat. Didn't want to have to go find my pins. Your shop's going to be 80. Oh, yeah. They do get warm in the summer if you don't have any cooling on them. So, all right, I am going to move this over so we can focus it. Again, it's got this little metal flip down foot there. Now I just bumped it out of its origin. I slide that down to the top. So we'll just go with the top focus first. And then as I test it later, I'll do more. Bring that back home. And then I'll set up a quick... I do have a few common test files that I've set up for different wattage lasers on here. So this should make this pretty quick. And hopefully that air pump works. All right, so I'm going to fire up our material test. We are going to run, so my test here is going to be from 300 millimeters a minute. No, why is it saying that? Hold on here. Let me get this fixed. That would be way too fast. Material test. All right, yep, 300 millimeters a minute to 600 millimeters a minute. And we're going to go just from 50% to 100% power because I am not worried about anything that cuts under 50%. We're just trying to find that 50 to 90 to 100%. Double check that I don't have any offsets set up. Okay. It's looking good. So this is going to step up at 50 millimeter a minute increments and 10% power each. So I'm going to frame this out. Nope. We are in current position. Let's go to absolute coordinates. All right. That's better speed. I don't want to waste the middle of my board though, so we'll move this back over to about a little closer to the corner. That should work. Put my glasses on for safety. And we'll hit start. Well, Mr. Clack, they don't get a lot of sun in the winter. When I went down to your area, they got burnt to a crisp right away. So it looks like my text setting is a little hot. And it's not running. I didn't check to see if it was set up to run the pump or not. The letters are set up to not, so it should turn the air pump on when it gets to the cut files, so we'll get there. I'm going to turn on my exhaust though. All right, it's moved into the cutting. The pump is on. Can't hear it, but it's vibrating. I can hear some air coming out of the nozzle. It is a fairly thin hose though, so I'm curious just how much volume we're getting. But some of them are dropping out, so at least it is going to show us some on the cut scale. So this file on this 20 watt, it's going to take about 3 minutes to run through. And then from there, you know, usually I'll run a number of these because it's not always accurate on the first one. You might run into, you know, a piece of the material that's got a void or some extra glue in there. So I always like to try to run it a couple times, make sure that I didn't have any anomalies in there. And then from there, you can start playing with lowering this down. This one having the manual focus, of course, you're going to need to and then just that foot lever, you'd have to set up kind of maybe a jig. But it does look like there's probably a good, there's at least, there's more than a 1/4 inch, so maybe 3/8 of an inch. So you're probably talking about 6 to 8 millimeters of distance between the shroud and the material. And then if you were to take that shroud off and make your own custom jig for focusing, you'd probably have 8 to 10 millimeters of depth. I'm just kind of guessing basing on what I'm seeing in there, but so you got some flexibility there. So this one is cutting each square and it pauses for a second before moving to the next one, which is interesting. I'll have to dig into the G code and take a look at what it's set up for actual maximums and such. See if there's anything abnormal set up on the machine itself. Now we'll see what this does after it ends the job. I didn't change anything on the machine settings. Normally I'll set it up to go back to the back left corner to kind of get the head out of the way. And the interesting thing is one of the safety features being the flame detect is once that is triggered, it's supposed to move out of the way. I don't remember if it was back to 0, 0 or your preset. Okay, so that just went back to 0, 0 on this one. But having that move out of the way after a flame detection is actually a pretty interesting idea. So, all right, let's take a look at this cut. I'm just going to tap out the ones that want to fall as well, just slightly. So, let's see here, wrong camera. Let me switch over to this one. So, it did cut out at 400 millimeters a minute on that top value there. And on the back side, you can kind of see how close it was on all the others. So I think if we bump the focus down to where it was in the middle of the board, we'd probably get this up another 50 millimeters a minute. And I'm going to play with the air. I got to make sure that there's no, that it's putting out air. It does have this kind of adjustable valve on here to let you play with the volume. But I may even see trying some of my other air pumps on it and just making sure that it's getting the maximum air it can. So anyway, I'm going to turn off some of this extra noise. There we go. It's just not so loud. Brad, so what they were saying is that they're calling it a 20-watt machine. And with that 20-watt machine, they're saying 20 to 22 is, I think, what it says on the, it says laser optical power 20 to 22 watts. So getting into that 400 millimeter a minute range on this Baltic birch plywood is about typical for what I see on there. Now, this is a little more dense than your typical craft 8 millimeter plywood. If this was more of your hobby store craft stuff, I would expect to see a little higher speed, and or if it was just solid basswood in 1/8 inch, I would expect to see some higher speeds. I'm going to be doing some playing around with this and trying out some different material. I've been doing a lot with the 1/8 inch or the 1/4 inch sanded ply from Home Depot, and I typically get similar speeds on that as I do this 1/8 inch Baltic birch plywood. So just kind of an example there of how the different types of densities and the different layers and different glues in different thicknesses will kind of affect the performance of your laser. So what I like to do is run a few typical materials that you might find at big box stores to kind of give you a close baseline and maybe be able to compare it to other lasers. And since I've been running a few different lasers and testing them, it helps me get a better baseline for that as well. But I'm not surprised one way or the other with this. This is kind of pretty typical for this 20 watt-ish machine with this material. I guess so. We'll see how it goes with more of the materials and such. And of course, I'll want to play around with kerf testing and see how the image quality, see how in doing photographic engraves and such, if I get any of the banding and such. All those things that I like to do when running through my tests on here. And then, of course, I really like to do a project video. That's a good way to really figure out how is this laser going to work in a typical shop. Run a project through it. See, whether it's something that I'm, might sell fairly often, or it's something new that I'm doing for myself or someone else. That also gives me a good baseline for these. So, anyway, that was kind of my goal for tonight. So for the rest of this, I can hang out for a little bit. Just chatting with you guys if you want. Appreciate you all stopping by and checking this out. Anytime I have the time and remember to set up my cameras for this, I like to try to do this a little bit live, because there are some people that don't like to see the build in the review videos, and then there's other people that like to have some of the build available as reference. So I kind of find this as being a happy medium. It's not always possible. Sometimes they want you to get the videos ready but not release anything. They didn't say anything about that this time, so I'm going with it. It was okay to do this, and yeah, we'll hopefully have something out on this maybe even later this week, as far as more testing and getting it through some of those other materials. And like I say, we'll follow it up with a project video as well. So Norbert's wondering which one of Clack or I will be the first to add a Wi-Fi borescope to a laser to get laser nozzle. Yeah, well, you know, they do. They have those fairly inexpensively online. And I've seen some unique uses for it. That, you know, I don't know. We're both kind of gear junkies. I give Clack a lot of flack for being a gear junkie, but we both are. We love playing around with technology. So that it sounds like the challenge has been stated, and we'll have to look into that and see. I don't know. It may, you know, that might be so bright that it could just blow out the sensor on there, and all you would get is just a flash of white. But it'd be fun to play around with that and see if that'd be possible. So, yeah, Jeff, your 2 trees 10 watt came with an 1/8 inch air hose, and the 20 watt came with a 1/4 inch. Yeah, I'm curious about that on if this is, you know, if this is typical. I'm pretty sure you could upscale this hose, maybe get some more volume, because that's really what it is on these things, is having volume of air going through there to be effective. But I do always like when they have the M8 control on there for the pump, but I also like being able to adjust that flow. If you're doing an engraving, I like to have that positive airflow going over there. So, and yeah, like if you didn't catch earlier, one of the spare parts that comes with this, I'm going to the wrong one here. One of the spare parts that does come with this is one of these extra cover lens with the brass sleeve. So it's nice to see them including these in the kit, because this definitely is a consumable. That cover lens on these, it's great when they make it easily replaceable. These should just thread off the end of the module, and then this one I can already tell it doesn't have a brass nut on the inside. It's just held in with a little silicone O-ring. So soak that in a little acetone, pop that out, and then you can put a new one back in, and then put an O-ring on top of it to hold it secure. So it's nice to see those included. I know a few other manufacturers have done that as well, and so to at least put one in with it is good for people who are just getting started out. But no matter what laser you have, check to see if you have one of these. And it's also good to check to make sure this is on securely. Sometimes they can come a little loose in shipping or over time, and have some on hand, because you don't want that to hold you up in the middle of a job or a project. That lens breaks. You can run without it, but then you risk getting smoke on your actual focus lens, and that's not always a replaceable item without swapping out the whole module. So, yeah, Clack's got a camera in his new enclosure. I've got a few things that are going to be shuffling in my shop out here in this month. So I'm actually going to have more room to build an extended laser with enclosure. So I'll hopefully be playing a little catch up there and getting that set up. Probably stealing and borrowing some ideas from Clack and others to make my new enclosure for an extended one. And so that'll be exciting to do. And yes, I'm going to have cameras in there as well. It's good for monitoring. It's also fun for recording and such. So, yeah, Norbert, on my CO2, sometimes when I wasn't sure if it cut through, I'd actually take a flashlight and shine it up through the honeycomb to kind of see if I could tell if there are any gaps in there. But having a camera underneath to actually see if you're getting smoke and the light coming through is a good tip to help see if you're getting an efficient cut or if it's completing. Always helpful when you don't have to move your material. You can run another lap around on those cut files. So anyhow, well, everyone, it's been fun, but I am getting warm, and I do want to kind of evacuate the remaining smoke in here. I try not to run these in the open too much, except for when I'm videoing them and such. It makes it a lot easier to see. Once I get a more permanent enclosure out here, it's going to make it easier. But I do have the ones down in my basement. It's nice being out here with all my materials and such. So thanks, everyone, for stopping by. All of you are probably part of the core audience anyway, but we do our Sunday night lives, so we're going to be live again about this time tomorrow, so 7 p.m. Central. Come stop back and we'll be talking about what's been going on in the shop and talking about what's going to be coming up. And then we always love to answer your questions and just have some fun chat with you. So definitely stop back for that, and definitely help out, hit that like button on this video. Check out our other videos as well. I did just drop my video today, so go check that one out if you haven't, and give me some feedback on it. Otherwise, we will see you tomorrow. Later.